What's up, YouTube? Back at you with another video, another quick take. I got my main man, my partner, my brother here.
It's been a long time coming. We are back. Thank you again for having me again, bro. Appreciate it.
And my guy, LeVar. What up, bro?
Yo, what's going on, everybody?
Yes, sir. So I got an article courtesy of Yahoo Sports, which unfortunately says Jermall Charlo stripped of WBC middleweight title after DWI arrest. The article goes on to say the World Boxing Council has stripped middleweight champion Jermall Charlo of his title after he was arrested and charged with driving while intoxicated, fleeing the scene of an accident and eluding police on Monday. The WBC released a statement saying that the WBC has provided and will continue to do as much as possible to support Jermall Charlo during his difficult times with regards to mental wellness. The WBC said in a statement, after a thorough evaluation of the situation and understanding of the facts and times, the WBC may rank Charlo in super middleweight. It says, according to ESPN, Charlo's blood alcohol content was 0.15, well over the legal limit of 0.18 or 0.08. He was released by Pearland Police Department in Texas on a $9,500 bond. It says the 33-year-old Charlo, the WBC middleweight title holder, was driving his red Lamborghini around 6:41 p.m. when he was involved in a collision with another vehicle, according to police. A verbal argument ensued following the crash, and Charlo left the scene rather than wait for police to arrive. The officer eventually identified his whereabouts and pulled up behind Charlo in a marked car with his lights activated. Charlo, the sole occupant of the vehicle, drove for approximately 1 mile while an officer trailed him. Eventually, another officer parked in front of Charlo as he attempted to drive through a red light, forcing him to stop. Charlo was transported to Brazoria County Jail after undergoing standard sobriety tests at City of Pearland Jail. It was determined that the 33-year-old had lost normal use of his mental and physical faculties. We are optimistic that there will be a good solution, Charlo's attorney said. Now, Jermall has been having issues, for the past year or so. And when news of those things were going on last year, I didn't really want to speak on it because, as some of you may know, Charlo is my favorite fighter in the ring, for sure. He is my favorite, bona fide fighter. And, before I give my thoughts on it, LeVar, you're familiar with the Charlos and you're a boxing fan. So I wanted to get your thoughts on, the news that came out about him.
I just wanted to say it's definitely something that I expected to happen again. Obviously, I don't like the scenario. I always want to see people doing their best, and to hear about something like this happening again, it's kind of not the best news to hear, especially since obviously as a championship, he's probably going to go down as one of the best boxers of his generation. So, like I said before, it's not the best thing to hear, but I just don't understand why he ran another mile away after they started chasing him. That just doesn't make no sense. Like, if you know you messed up, just go ahead, take the blame. You're just going to make it worse by running away from the officers. Especially, well, I don't know if the officers were black or white specifically,
right?
But nowadays, when you try and run away from the cops, even with black cops, what they'll do to black people. So it's like you're kind of putting yourself at risk when you do things like that. As far as it goes with the stripping of the championship, I mean, I would say it's probably deservingly so, considering that one, his activity hasn't been that high in the ring for the past couple years, and two, I mean, if you're not going to go in the ring, I don't really see why you should just be holding a championship. There's other people that's risking their lives, fighting every 3 months to 6 months. So if he's not going to take the sport seriously, I think that he should handle the consequences. But yeah, that's kind of like my initial thoughts on whole situation there.
Now, before I get your perspective, Percy, I kind of want to give mine real quick. So honestly, man, like, it's unfortunate, bro. Like, and I really hate to see it. I thought that after the Jose Benavidez fight that this was going to be the start of him being more active, an upward trend, him cleaning up his act, but it just seems like he's spiraling. Now, I don't know if you saw this, LeVar, but Charlo, he was on an Instagram live with Ocho Cinco like literally a couple of days ago. And if you watch it, you will see that Charlo was pretty much on the verge of tears talking to him, and he was saying that he doesn't have a wife, that he's not allowed to see his kids. And the only thing that he had to make himself feel better about that was the fact that he was in a penthouse by himself, and I was kind of upset watching that because I'm just like, look at this guy who legit is crying out for help and nobody's giving it to him. And I understand that people don't like the Charlos and stuff, but it's like, God forbid something happened to him, like serious, or he lost his life, then everybody would be like, oh, rest in peace, Jermall Charlo. He was a great, all of this, when it's like there are things that, people can do right now to intervene. You get what I'm saying? So what's going on right now to me is like just a big cry for help. And hopefully he will get the help that he needs, because what's going on right now is bigger than boxing. And it's unfortunate that he doesn't have anybody in his corner that can be there for him. Because at that level, when you have all this money and success, whatever, people are not really your friend. Like, whether it's your coach, other boxers, whatever, because these people, it's like industry stuff or it's business. They're not really there for you on a personal note. Because if that was the case, then where are these people right now when he's getting, drunk out of his mind? And I don't know how bad, how much alcohol you have to, drink to be that, much higher above, the legal limit. But it's like, yo, like, this is very serious. And I really hope that like somebody, whether it's his family or someone, will be like, yo, like, let's get you some help. Let's clean this up. Like, forget boxing. Forget that, because ultimately that doesn't matter at the end of the day if you don't even have your right mind, if you don't have good health, if you don't even have, access to, to your kids in your house. Because when I look at, social media, I see, I guess maybe his ex-wife or something, she's in that big old house that he lives in, in Houston, with the kids, and he's not even there. So I just think people need to kind of chill out with the criticism and all of that, and then really lock in and say, this is somebody that really needs help. But it goes back to what I always say anyway, where people don't care about mental health the way that they say that they do, because if people did, then they would say, yo, people would be a lot more sympathetic. Now, as far as him getting stripped, I agree with you, because first of all, he can't make 160 no more. He was never going to fight Carlos Adames, anyway. So the middleweight division has to move on. It's not fair that the WBC plays favorites where a dude legit hasn't fought in the division in pretty much 3 years, because he didn't fight last year. And he fought Montiel in June of 2021. They don't do that for other fighters. So it shouldn't have taken a DWI for them to say, okay, clearly this guy's not getting any better, so let's strip him. They should have done that a while ago. But Percy, the reason why I wanted you to come on is because, you're like the resident UFC, MMA, analyst, here on the quick takes and stuff. So I want to get your opinion on, like, if you've ever seen something like that happen to, let's say, fighters in the UFC, and what your perspective is on the stuff that he's going through outside of the ring.
Oh yeah. Let me say this. What's that saying that no hashtag no Diddy, but he used to say more money, more problems, right? And that's true. From the UFC standpoint, and I'm gonna try to be as unbiased as I can. John Jones, one of my favorite fighters of all time.
Yep.
And it's known his history with outside things. A couple years ago, drunk driving, hitting a pregnant lady and stuff like that. And I think for John Jones, people criticize him to this day, but I think to his credit, he has shown responsibility for his actions. He hasn't made any excuses. Granted, it doesn't excuse what he's done. But I think that, when you're a successful, champion, dominant champion for him for, almost a decade in his division, a lot of people will give you that grace. Israel Adesanya, the former middleweight UFC champion, last summer he got arrested in New Zealand for, drunk driving, even though it wasn't that significant, but, he got cited anyway. Um, I do think a lot of people don't care about Charlo and some of these other big name fighters, getting in these situations because people look at it, this goes back to the Viola Davis quick take that we did. When you have money, fame, and status, people tend not to care that you go through problems because they look at it like, yo, you got access to money, you're famous, you live in multi-million dollar homes. Why are you complaining? And I think that people need to, realize that, these are human beings too. We don't know what is going on behind closed doors with them. You know what? You don't know what type of other factors going in their lives, that are making them act out this way. Now, I gotta say this real quick because I might ruffle little feathers with this, but I'm sure I don't know if you're aware, Dimitri. I know we talked about this before, but a couple years ago, one of my older brothers was killed by a drunk driver in Brooklyn, and there's a lot of people, who are getting killed by drunk driving. If I'm not mistaken, I know last year there was an NFL player, I believe, or some type of athlete who got in a car crash in Las Vegas, doing over 120 miles per hour in a Lamborghini, flipped the car over into somebody's house, all that stuff. And I think a lot of people tend to also not really sympathize with them is because they look at it like, yo, what if you killed somebody? There could have been some innocent children or innocent lives lost and injured from your careless mistakes. And I think, at the bottom line, I know people go through hard times, and I understand Jermall. I don't know Jermall Charlo the way like I do.
Oh, Jermall Charlo.
Jermall Charlo, yeah. I don't know John Jones and Israel Adesanya personally like that, but I think that he needs to figure out what's making him act out this way, and if he does know, he needs to find that solution because eventually, this type of behavior will catch up. And we've seen this time and time again. That one mistake can land you in prison for the rest of your life because you didn't get the help and stuff that you deserve. So I do sympathize with him, and I do hope he figure out his things. But you can't be out here drunk driving, especially in Lamborghinis and evading police, especially as a black man. I don't know. I mean, we all know police and black people. So I hope he figures it out. But yeah, that drunk driving stuff only takes one time, and someone to die for him. His boxing career will be over. Nobody will talk about him no more. He'll be in prison, and for what? So that's what I feel about that.
Right. Well, I will give you guys some context because I think a lot of this is stemming from, issues with the mother of his kids. Because I don't know if they're currently married or not. But long story short, they were having issues last year and they separated. And then she was coming out talking about how he was broke. He was going to lose a house, in the cars. He was never going to fight again. Like she was running straight to social media, with all of that shit that was going on. And they were separated for a long time. So I would say the majority of 2023, they weren't together. And then they didn't really get back together until he had his fight in November. And then they were on social media, on Instagram and, boo loving. She was like, oh, I'm sorry I was never there for you. A wife is supposed to be strong and you blah, 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 blah. And then look at them right now, right back to square one. There were legit videos of her like kicking the door of one of his cars in front of their kids. So they clearly have, a very volatile relationship. And then, him, he just doesn't know, like, yo, it's never going to work, between the two of them. And honestly, I don't know if maybe her goal is to, you know how some people are like in separations, they're entitled to, some sort of, money or child support or whatever, because she's got 5 kids with this guy. So she's going to get some kind of money from him, regardless if they're together or not. And sometimes she might benefit more from not being with him than being with him. And I was afraid of that. The minute I saw them together, I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. I was like, hopefully it works out. Hopefully it works out. Hopefully they can get it together. But I was just like, yeah, I don't know. And frankly, I feel like that drove a wedge between him and his brother, Jermall, because they did a podcast and it was like When Lions Cry or something like that. And they were talking about that, or at least I think Jermall brought it up. And he was like, yeah, like his wife, you know, she's a demon and all that other types of stuff. And then Jermall, he brushed it off because I guess maybe there's a part of him that felt like, yo, I want to get back with her in the future. So I'm not about to have my brother publicly, you know, talk down on her. And then so it's like, all right, like let's say, let me ask you guys. So let's say I'm your brother and I have a, you know, an ex-girlfriend that was, let's say she was physically abusive, verbally abusive and all of that. She stabbed me with a knife. She did a whole bunch of shit. And let's say you guys were there for me while all of that was going on and we finally break up. How would you feel if I get back with her after all of that? Like, how would the two of you individually feel?
You know,
Yeah.
let me just jump in here real quick, LeVar. And, you know, the reason why I want to just jump in real quick is because, you know, it's like, you know, me and you do acting, right? And, you know, we're at that point where, you know, we're going out for the professional stuff, right? And I would look at it in a situation like this. You know, we've had discussions about relationship stuff before. But here's what I would say. You know, thanks for giving the context about him. You know, at some point, you manifest your own destiny and you create your own choices. So if you want to continue to go back to that relationship, whatever happens from that point forward, you know, you might be my brother, you might be, you know, my close friend, you know, I might consider you family. But you know, at some point you gotta kind of make the choices. And if you continue to go back to that choice, knowing that professionally and personally is messing you up, then unfortunately I might have to, you know, give my distance because at the same time, you know, I might support you, but I can't have you dragging down my career, you know, because I might have a family that's dependent on me. So, you know, I feel bad for, you know, I would feel bad, you know, that you know, you're stuck in that cycle. But at some point, you kind of have to break the chains and, you know, and make that choice to leave it back, you know, leave it in the past. But if you want to keep it in the future, then, you know, that's your choice. But I just might not be there for you as much anymore.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, I agree with Percy on the fact of how your actions might affect others. When you are dealing with a situation like that, there's just certain levels of accountability that you have to deal with, certain levels of trust. And once you kind of break that level of trust, for example, if you're with your brother and you're in a relationship, like you said before, toxic, abusive, um, it's really when you're dealing with a situation like that, you it's really hard to just go back and then support, I guess you could say, a situation like that, because speaking from experience, it does get kind of toxic the more you let it go on ahead. But I would personally say that in Jermall and Jamel's situation, I think that Jermall just has to stop using alcohol, drugs. Well, I'm not gonna say drugs, but alcohol as a way to cope for the situation that he's going through. I think that what he should do is try and handle the situation heads on, uh, properly just go ahead, um, try and talk to the partner, see what can be done. If she's still toxic and abusive, when you're just trying to be straight up, you're trying to just set boundaries, then it is what it is. At that point, that's when you know that the line's been crossed. And at that point, if he still wants to see his kids, then that's fine. But if you still want to put yourself in a toxic situation with someone who clearly just doesn't care about the line anymore and care about boundaries,
Right.
at that point you're just chasing a dream that's never gonna come. So
yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't even knock you guys for that. And I guess maybe it's just because he's my favorite fighter and I'm kind of like biased in that sense, but it's just like it's just sad that no one's stepping in for this guy. And maybe he does have people, because I know at that level, when you got, you know, you're a multimillionaire, you're probably not going to want to listen to nobody. So even if somebody is telling him, yo, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, he might not even be listening, you know, because I just felt like for Ocho Cinco to be somebody that he considers a friend, when you're seeing clear signs that this guy needs help, how you stay on Instagram Live and just tell them, oh, we'll just focus on boxing and all that shit. Like you if that was me, and I've said this before, I would have said, yo, bro, let's just get off Instagram Live right now and let me call you. You know, that's what really should have happened. I feel like Ocho Cinco is not really his friend.
Yeah,
People that are seeing all of this stuff going on right now and are not, you know, like helping him find help, because that's what I'm saying. Like at this point right now, no one that's related to him or as a friend can really give him the help that he needs, because the type of help that he needs, it's like psychological help. It's like, you know, medical help, because if you're an alcoholic, you have problems. If, you know, you're depressed, you have a mental problem. So he needs help that unfortunately the people around him can't give. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he has to be the one that wants to help, because this is a perfect example of, you know, all the money in the world, like none of that matters if you're not even right on the inside. So you could have a Lamborghini, you could be in a penthouse and stuff like that. But what really matters at the end of the day is your own personal health, whether it's, you know, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all of that. If you don't have that, then none of that shit matters. There's plenty of people who are rich and then they got themselves strung out on alcohol or drugs or ended up killing themselves because they weren't right on the inside. And that's why I'm afraid, because it was funny when I saw that Instagram Live, I was like, yo, he needs help. And then fast forward 3 days later, this happens. So I'm literally seeing all of these red flags, and I'm like, yo, the next thing that I want to hear about Jermall is that he checked into rehab somewhere. You know, whether it's publicized or not, that's what I want to see. I don't want to go, you know, on my phone and see, you know, Jermall Charlo's in jail for the next 20 years because he did this, or he's mortally injured because he crashed his car again. You know what I'm saying? Because that's like what happened with Errol Spence. It's like, God forbid something happened to him. It's like, yo, he's got a lot of not only, you know, friends and family, but fans that look up to him. Shit, I looked up to Errol Spence. So when he got in the car crash back in 2019, I was afraid for his life. Now, in this case scenario, it's like with Jermall, I'm afraid for his life because I know where that can go if it goes unchecked. So it's like he, you know, got arrested, got the $9,500 bond, you know, got out of jail, whatever, but he's going to end up right back at square one if something doesn't happen. So it gets to a point where, like, yo, something needs to change, because if it doesn't, then worse things can happen. And I feel like I can't talk about this situation with apathy, because not only is he my favorite fighter, but he's a guy that looks just like me, figuratively speaking. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, if I could be that apathetic with him, then I would be that apathetic with, let's say, somebody that I say that I care about. You know, and then it's like, how much do you really care about your own people? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how can we sit there and talk about police shooting black men and women and stuff like that and how we want things to change, but we're seeing a man that just happens to be a public figure literally going through it mentally and physically, and we're just like, hey, if he keeps doing that, then, like, you know, if he ends up dying, that's like Rocky IV. If he dies, he dies. I can't do that. Like, I hope Jermall just happens to be scrolling through YouTube and listening to this shit, because it's like, yo, like, you legit need to go somewhere and get help, especially if you got freaking 6-7 figures in the bank. You could afford that. You could afford a therapist that will literally sit and talk to you every single day if that's what you need. That's what he needs. Rehabilitation, and then, like, you know, therapy. That's what he needs. And then ultimately to walk away, you know, from, you know, that, you know, woman that he's been with, freaking, you know, Chantel and shit like that. Because it's a proverb that, again, like, I always, you know, come back to. And it's like, do not waste your strength and vigor on women who only seek to destroy kings. That's a fact. That is a fact. Because a woman will ultimately always be a man's downfall. Well, I would say the wrong woman will always be your downfall. For real. And it's like, it shouldn't take, like, them getting back together, getting, you know, say, doing like up and down for him to finally see, like, yo, this woman is not good for my life. It's interrupting my career. It's ruined my personal life, my relationship with my brother, probably my relationship with my parents, all of that. Like, it's like, yo, you know, so that's all I'm saying. Like, I understand that, like, you know, sometimes you do need to distance yourself from people who are clearly destroying themselves, because that's going to ultimately rub off on you in some way, shape, or form. And you can't always do that. But
right.
But
Yeah,
it's like, because that's what I'm saying. Like, let's say like you were to have problems with your girl or something. I always say, like, if there's something that I could do or say that can push you in the better direction, I would feel bad if I wasn't there to do that for you. You know, like if I was Jermall and I'm seeing all of this going on, and this is my twin brother, and I love him because he's my brother. Like I can understand if y'all not even close like that. You know, so that's a whole different story because I don't know their relationship. But I'm just saying, like, if you do rock with somebody like that, it's like, yo, you see them going off the deep end. It's like, yo, you gotta grab them before they really go off. Because these are the things that can happen. I don't know if you guys ever heard about, I think LeVar, you might know Etika. Yeah, have you ever heard of him before? He was a streamer.
Yeah, the YouTuber that
Nintendo Switch, you know, all of that, freaking, you know, joystick boys or whatever, Joy-Con boys, whatever. Same
yeah,
thing. This was a guy that was literally spiraling in front of our face, literally on the internet, with SWAT team pulling up to his crib, knocking down his door on Twitter, you know, saying weird stuff all the time. And then ultimately he put a whole, like, yo, I'm sorry, you know, sorry, basically like a suicide, you know, note on YouTube. And then he jumped off the Manhattan Bridge or the Brooklyn Bridge.
yep.
This is what I'm saying. Like, how can we say that we care about mental health? We care about black people, we care about our own, but we hear a story like this and we talk about it with such fucking apathy. Like, seriously, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying y'all, I'm just saying in general. Because there's a lot of YouTubers, people on Twitter that are leaping for joy that this man was stripped, that are leaping for joy that this man is spiraling just because he didn't have the nicest personality in boxing. I understand that the Charlos, they have attitude problems. Like I'm not a man fan. Like I know why people dislike them, but at the same time, again maybe it's just because I'm a fan, you know, because I probably wouldn't say the same thing about Ryan Garcia. But then again, Ryan Garcia is not black, but you know, I just have to, you know, if I'm going to be an advocate for mental health and black, you know, men and women and all of that, then I have to be that, dog. That's what I'm saying.
but you know what though? I will say this though, and I agree with everything you said, but I do think, you know, like LeVar said too, at some point you reach the point where if it starts affecting what you got going on too, then you got to take a step back. For instance, you know, like you a fan of Jermall, I'll defend John Jones to my dying breath. I'm like, no Diddy. All right. This guy is one of my favorite athletes of all time. But you know, like his longtime coach, Mike Winklejohn, someone who's helped him maintain and win the light heavyweight championship and continue to dominate. He at some point was like, "Yo, John, I'm gonna have to distance myself from you. You're gonna have to leave the gym." And a lot of people looked at him like, "Yo, how you gonna abandon this dude? Like he's the dude. He's the reason why your gym is successful." But for him, he looked at it like I did as much as I could, and it's getting to the point where now I'm on the phone with him instead of spending time with my family, my wife, you know, and it's ruining my career. You know, I got other fighters I got to coach too, and I think, you know, you could be empathetic, but at some point, you know, like the example you gave about him and his girl, wife or whatever. Granted, I definitely understand that. Like, you know, you sometimes you get in those relationships and it's hard to break through. I 100% agree with that. But I think more people would have more empathy for him if it was like he lost a child, his mom died, you know, something like that. That's very traumatic.
Yeah, but why is it that? But why is there like a box or like a category for when it's appropriate to have empathy for somebody? Because like, I'll only have empathy for you if. I'll only have empathy for you when. Like, nah, it should just, I feel you. Like, because it's like, of course I'll give you $1 to help, but I'm not going to give you my last dollar. But what Jermall needs is not something that is going to be at the detriment of somebody else's life. It's just like, yo, there are places you can go, dog, for the help that you need. Because again, I'm not, so let's say if I knew Jermall, I'm not, you know, I can't give him the help that he needs, but it's like, yo, this is what you need to do, bruh. Because I'll quote Tyrese, because we talked about Tyrese before. It's like Tyrese says, it's like, when you're going through it mentally, you cannot talk to your friends and your family about the things that you're going through because they don't know what to tell you to get you through what you're going through. You need to go to a professional who is, because people who are too close to you, they can't see you for who you really are because they're too close. When you go to therapy, that person sees you with a clarity because they're far away. They don't know you like that. So what I'm saying is, if I was Jermall's friend or I was his brother, yo, you need help. This is where you need to go, bro. I'll even take you for real. And it's not anything to it's not anything to be ashamed of, but it's like I would be happy knowing that if I'm somebody in his life, I'm doing my part as somebody who cares about him. Because again, this is where shit goes. I'm saying, like, if somebody had stepped up for Etika, he would still be here today. That was something that I thought in my mind. I was like, yo, where are his friends at? Like, did not anyone think to say, yo, bro, you need help. And it's going to take time. That's not some shit you just go to therapy once or twice, or you go to the hospital just once and then you leave and you start carrying on the way, in the same way that got you in that situation in the first place. This isn't something that I can understand if, let's say, your relative or your friend's a crackhead, and they're doing crack, in the freaking, crack houses and shit. And then every Monday or Tuesday, you got to keep, if you want to go and find them, you got to go in the crack house to go get them. That's different. This is different. We're talking about a professional athlete who is having marital issues and does not know how to deal with them. And then the ways that he's coping, it's obvious. He's drinking. And then even LeVar, if you've probably seen the IG Live from like April or May of last year, he was on there talking about, oh, you want some psychedelics? Probably doing psychedelic drugs. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So literally the signs are there. And he was saying that in a room of people that were, I'm assuming, related to him. So how is this going on? People don't want to react until it's too late. This conversation, in my opinion, is bigger than Jermall Charlo. And that's why, that's the importance of quick takes in the first place, because it's about the real shit that be going on. Because a lot of times, again, people, and I'm not saying you guys are bad or that I disagree with you guys, but I'm saying that a lot of people have that mentality where it's like, yo, hey, bro, I see you going through it. That's wild, but you'll be all right though. And then just like let niggas spiral instead of giving them the guidance to, giving them just a nudge in the right direction, because sometimes that's all people need. Sometimes that's all people need. Remember when we talked about money and the Jay-Z and all of that? I was like, yo, sometimes it's not about giving somebody money, but sometimes it's about giving them some game so they know what to do with their money. So when they get money, they have a plan instead of just swiping, or spending, swipe. Those are the things that you do that will change somebody's life for the better. So you have to kind of just, again, have empathy. It's like, oh, I'm only going to feel bad for you if your mom died. I'm only going to feel bad for you if you get injured. Nah, it's like, yo, because that could happen to anybody. That's how life works. So I can't say, yo, if I knew him, I would just be like, hey, you know what? That ain't got nothing to do with me. My name is Bennett. I ain't even in it. It's like, yo, that's fucked up, because what if that was me? I would want somebody to be there for me in that way, or at least, again, like be like, yo, bro, let's go to the rehab. I'll pull up with you, bro. I'll pull up. That's what I'm saying. And again, like, maybe it's because he's my favorite fighter, I'm going hard. But even if he wasn't, I would say the same thing about the both of you. Because again, Jermall Charlo, that's y'all too. He's black just like y'all. So would you want to be going through something mentally, and then for somebody to be like, you know what, helping him is probably going to affect, like, it's probably like, all right, so let's say if Percy, you were having a bad day or something. All right, okay. Let's say if you were at work, okay? Now, it might not be like your real job in real life. And LeVar, like, you can answer this too. But let's say you were at work.
Wait, Dimitri. Before you continue, because how much time we have left?
Don't worry about it. We got 4 minutes. That's okay.
All right.
Let's say you guys were at work and you were in tears crying because, let's say, whatever it is that's going on with you. Imagine if, let's say, as you're sitting in that break room, people are just coming and going as if, like, they don't even see that you're going through it. Like, not one person that you work with just sat and said, like, are you okay? Like, you all right? No one asked you that. How would you feel? I'm asking y'all. Like, this is real shit. I'm asking you.
Yeah,
I'm saying, like, how would you personally feel if people walked by you while you were in tears, crying, and no one batted an eye, no one was curious to see what you were doing? They might be like, oh, hi, Percy, and then keep walking. How would you feel?
I'll let you go, LeVar.
Yeah, I would say obviously exclusion is going to be the first thing you're going to feel. But the thing I think is really dangerous with a situation like that is that it can drive a person to insanity. Like if you ever feel like you're not getting the support that you need, no one's helping you, you're the only person in your own mind, you're just trapped inside your own mind. Eventually it's gonna feel like there's no one else in the world. And that's usually how people become mentally insane and
End
just
up
ended
like,
up.
or end up like Etika.
Exactly. Just about to say that. Yep. Because
Yeah.
that's the most likely reason he did that. And another thing I disagree with when it comes to like public perception or just public media in general, the things that they do. Because with Etika, for example, like you said, when he was going through it, people like Keemstar, if y'all know who he is,
Yeah,
he's
I
like
know
that.
him. I know him.
Yeah, he was I think he was like talking about Etika should go ahead and end it or something like that. I forgot exactly what he said, but it's like most big media personalities, if they see that someone else who has a large following as well is going through it, they won't really have as much they won't put as much forth humanity towards the situation as they will with someone that they know in their real life. And I'm
Right.
not saying that everyone that has that sort of fame acts that way, because a lot of people actually do have good empathy, have good humanity.
Right.
But then again, I mean, even saying like people with a big platform, that's people out here who don't have a big name, who uh like human empathy, people who are like racist, for example, like
Mm-hmm.
people who dehumanize other people. So I mean, in regards to if you are just sitting by yourself, I just think that if people aren't batting you an eye, they just don't care. And like I said before, that'll just leave you to insanity.
Right, right. But just to answer that particular question, you would feel a way if you were crying in your workplace and no one stopped to say, "Are you all right?"
Yep.
You would. All right, Percy, would you feel a way if
Oh,
you
of
were in
course.
tears, crying, going through whatever it is that pushed you to tears? You would feel a way
Oh, of course. And
because that's what's happening right now.
no, no,
That's what's
I
happening
had
right
to.
now with Jermall. That's what I'm
No,
saying. In grand scale, this is what's happening. This is a man that's going through something, and people are just reporting, talking about it as if, oh, it's all good. Oh, that's just Jermall. He got stripped. Now we'll get more fights without him at 160. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is what's going on right now, and I don't like it.
no, but I would say too though, you know, I would want people I want people to have more empathy. And the problem with social media is there's a lot of people hiding behind the keyboard saying whatever they want because they don't have that attachment to that person. But the point I was making is, I trust me, I have empathy for everybody, even a homeless man sleeping on the corner, right? But if I know that every time I try to help you and you just like I how many times as a teenager our parents told us not to do something and we did it, right? As a teenager, you get a pass. But when you're a grown adult and people are continuously, yo, I need you to, get into rehab, or I need you to put down the bottle. I need you to get back in the gym and really focus on your training. And every time you turn around, they late to practice. But this goes back to something, like I said, John Jones, my favorite fighter of all time. Him and his coach Mike Wicklejohn, someone he's been training with since he was a teenager. At some point in during COVID 2020, he was like, John, we've been through a lot, but I'm gonna have to part way with you, part ways with you. And a lot of people was like, how could you do that? He's the money maker of your gym. You should supposed to support your fighter. But I think from his standpoint, it was at a point where, I love John, I would defend him, but I think he got tired of the constant out of the cage antics, with the police and all that stuff. And he has other fighters on in his gym he has to, worry about. He has a family that he has to provide for too. And he can't be constantly always worried about what John is doing because it's going to mess up what he has going on. So, back to your point though, I do think people deserve to have. I think people need more empathy, and I think people got so comfortable being behind the being behind the keyboard, that they just be out here just spewing all types of nonsense. I don't wish any ill will on this man. I do think, he's still a young guy, but and I think for him too, I can't speak for his brother because I don't know what happens behind closed doors, but his brother is also a professional boxer. He has his own thing going on too, and I'm sure he loves his brother. But I think at some point for him too, it's like you can lead a horse to the well, but you can't force it to drink. And if you know that, for instance, Dimitri, if you knew that, me and my girl had this toxic relationship. I was missing auditions all the time. Every time I told you I was going to help you with an important self tape, I can't do it, man. I want my girl right now. We got to do it another time. At some point, you're gonna, get fed up and annoyed, and it's going to start impacting what you got going on, right? And I think you could have empathy, but also at some point, this is a situation. And let me just back up real quick. The reason why I mentioned, a child dying or a parent passing away is because those are, things out of your control, and those are very traumatic, no matter who you are. But if you're someone who's choosing to actively pursue and do other toxic things, which again, I'm not saying, it's easy for him to leave his girl, his wife, and his family. I'm not saying that at all. But if he knows that if he keeps living with this person and it's impacting his boxing, it's impacting his coaches who deserve to get paid too, it's affecting his kids. At some point, I know it's tough, and I would say this if this is a woman too. This is not me just talking about it because he's a dude. But at some point, he has to realize no matter what he does, he could go back in the boxing ring. He could go back to training. He can, he can leave. But if he keeps going back to that same house, that same situation, nothing's going to change. And I think at some point, he has to make those choices. I'll just make this quick point real quick. When we were teenagers, our parents used to tell us, yo, you can't be out past 8. You got to do this. You got to do that. And most of us were like, nah, I'm doing my own thing. When you're a teenager, you get that pass. But when you, 33, early 30s, man, with a couple kids, and you're a professional athlete, you're not going to be given that same grace because people looking at you like you have the resources at your disposal. You have other options, and you're choosing, again, I'm not blaming him 100%, but people are looking at him like, yo, you can find another woman, and take your children and leave the situation, but you continue to choose to stay with this lady, even though it's very toxic, it's putting your career in jeopardy, and now you're out here drinking again, you're getting into DUIs again. How much sympathy can we keep giving you if you keep doing the same thing? And this is why I said John Jones, even though I would defend this man, to my dying breath, no Diddy, but even for him, I gotta admit, he does some things that I can't defend. And at some point, people need to realize you are the master of your own destiny. So he has to, find what makes him get up at night, get up in the morning and, change his situation. Because no matter how much his brother, his coach, our family tells him, hey, you need to do something different, unless he makes that conscious decision to, put the bottle down, leave the situation, take your kids or whatever, and leave out of the situation, it's just going to be a repeated cycle.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, I look at it like this. You can't babysit somebody. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he has to want it for himself. I'm saying that people around him should have enough empathy to take the initiative, but ultimately, it's like they're going to give him the starting point, but he has to run that marathon. He's got to run that race. Again, I feel like I would feel good as somebody in his life to be the one to help him take that initiative and to be there to support in case he needs that type of support. Because again, your therapists are not with you 100% of the time. Average therapy is set up where you only meet with your therapist once a week. Now, obviously, if you're in rehab, that's a different story. But then again, I mean, I'm only going off movies, but even people in rehab have a hard time,
Of course.
And ultimately, that's what he needs, because he might be strong physically because, again, he's a professional fighter, but it's pretty obvious that he doesn't have that mental strength anymore. And me personally, again, like I understand, like you gotta, have like some sort of discernment or like know when to discriminate. Because I'm only gonna offer that type of support that I'm talking about. I will give to Jermall if we have a close relationship like that. And he's got to be close to somebody. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah, I agree. I'm gonna let LeVar go. I just want to make this quick point. We did a quick take, a couple months ago about John Morant, right? John Morant, I don't know if you know the situation with LeVar, but John Morant, professional NBA player. I forgot what team he's on, but
The Grizzlies.
the Grizzlies, yeah. He was on live pointing out guns, and there was countless times, his teammates, whether it's the coaches, managers, I'm just this is just word of mouth that I've seen, in the headlines, but they've had repeated discussions with him about his actions. Now, granted, he don't have children. He's early 20s, so he's going to get a little more guidance and some help.
He's got a daughter.
And, my mistake then.
He does.
But since he is in his early 20s, he's going to get a little more guidance and help because we've all, in our early 20s act like fools. Now, when you're in your 30s, you're not going to be given that same grace, especially when you continuously make that same choice. And I think I agree with you, Dimitri. I think there's a lot of people. I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but I do think there are people who may not be helping him in a way that he needs. And that is unfortunate. But a lot of people look at him as like, yo, you have the resources to better yourself. We're not talking about a dude on minimum wage at McDonald's here. We're talking about a dude with making good money. He has a good life. He has the money to get a therapist, to get into rehab that the average man can't. So some people are going to look at him like, yo, you're choosing to participate in this destructive behavior. You have 5 kids. What are you doing, my man? Like, you got to get your own stuff together. And I think, at some point, just to reiterate this real quick, I think, me, you, Demetri, we like brothers, right? But I think at some point, if, we're in the top of the line now, right? We're A-list actors, whatever. I'm acting like a fool. And, you try to be there for me. But then, I'm calling you in the middle of set, while you shooting a movie. Or you got business going on. You got to provide, for your family. You're not going to always continuously try to pick up the phone every time, because at some point you're going to get sick and tired of being sick and tired of trying to help me.
I can't babysit you.
Yeah. But go ahead, LeVar. I ain't gonna take up too much airtime.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the part on Jermall Charlo possibly pushing away rather than trying to receive help, because ultimately at the end of the day, if you keep pushing someone away, obviously they can't really help you. Exactly. In regards to that John Morant situation, it is definitely, I do definitely see the similarity. I think personally for Jermall Charlo, if he's reached a point in his life where he just feels like he's kind of better than everyone that he hangs around with, or if he's just on a higher level, not really a narcissist, but he just thinks that his status puts him above everybody else. He may not even be even listening to the people around him. He may just think that everything he's doing is in his right, and no one should tell him what's right and wrong. I think that me personally, I would always want someone around me that's going to challenge me, both morally and well, just in life in general. Because the moment that I start to put myself above everybody else, I start to think that all my ideas are correct. I can't be wrong. I think that's the point where you just reach a level to where it can get dangerous, not only for just you yourself, but the people around you, because we know what happens. And it's not to get like into like a very bad subject here, but we know like SKs, if y'all know what I mean. People like
I don't know what that is.
I guess I'll just throw a name out there. Jay Dahmer, people like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you start to feel like when you start to put yourself in a different perspective from other humans, you start to dehumanize people, don't value people as much. Then you can start to do things like that. Now, obviously, I'm not saying Jermall Charlo is going to end up like that, but I think that if he isn't like having people around him that's going to challenge him morally, he's going to just keep going down this bad path. He might even think to himself, everything I'm doing right now, totally justified. So
yeah.
I just think at the end of the day, he should definitely, like y'all said, look into a psychologist, maybe hit up his bro for support. Hopefully, like I said, he doesn't think that he's above his bro, because if he thinks he's above his
Jermall probably not gonna pick up the phone. Because yeah, I mean, because remember the last time they had cross paths, their girls, they fought. And this was at the Arrow Spence Crawford like weigh-in or press conference or whatever it was last year. So they're not on good terms. And if I don't know if you were watching a lot of Jermall's interviews, but he was saying he was like, yo, he would reach out to Jermall and Jermall wouldn't pick up the phone. He wasn't trying to talk to him. You know, so that I don't know if their relationship is beyond repair. But again, like if Jermall didn't, like take any initiative to be there for Jermall, I would understand, because again, like if we don't have that type of relationship, I'm not going to be there for you, dog, because I don't have that to give you at this point. It's like everything that I'm talking about is assuming that like I have a good relationship, with somebody. They were there for me. They were positive. They were supportive of me. So then that would just be me, giving back to what I feel like they gave me. So then at your lowest, I have that to give you because throughout our whole relationship, you gave that to me. But if you never did that, or again, our relationship is beyond repair, then I'm not doing that. So again, it's like, because you can't, be over there trying to, save everybody, but it's like you'll be able to, help someone if, again, y'all have a positive, relationship. And, to your point, LeVar, like I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of developed that attitude as a result of his successes and, the amount of money that he's got, because there are some people, that's how they end up. Like their arrogance will probably shoot through the roof. And this isn't true arrogance, because if you weren't an arrogant dude before you had bread, and let's say you were you were a pretty decent guy and, humble, but then all of a sudden you get $3 million and then you become this asshole, it's like you're going to push people away after a certain amount of time. So that's why maybe people are not running to his aid, because, maybe he didn't treat people the best. Again, I don't know, but I know this is just one of those things where, money legit isn't everything. You can literally have it all and deadass feel like you have nothing. And that's where he's at. Because when I tell you, like, go ahead and watch it, the IG live. What's funny? He apologized to Caleb Plant on the live, if you saw it, with him and Ocho Cinco. Yeah, Caleb Plant was in the chat trolling this dude. And then when he saw Caleb's name, Percy, just to give you context, Caleb Plant slapped Jermall last summer at the Spence Crawford weigh-in.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, and Jermall just apologized to him. So this man doesn't have any fight in him like that. For him to legit apologize to the dude that slapped him across the face. Now, whether he was right or wrong to slap Jermall, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation and a completely different story. But this just lends itself to what he's going through, for the fact of when after the post fight with him and Jose Benavidez, he was calling out Caleb Plant. And fast forward, a few months, now he's telling Caleb Plant he's sorry. He wants, no parts. He doesn't enjoy boxing anymore. He just wants to retire, because what he's going through is just so bad. And I'm going to quote one of my favorite, well, he doesn't have a YouTube channel anymore, but a guy I used to watch, who was saying that people who be at their lowest, like niggas who are at their lowest, you're going to try everything. Like you're going to try to talk to people. You're going to go through a list of things that you think will help you, that will think that makes you think will improve your mental state, whether it's, again, girls, alcoholism, drugs, maybe training, or your kids, or whatever. You're going to go through that list. And it's like, once that list is exhausted, that's when things really get dangerous for them. Because you're talking to a guy that, I don't know if you ever watched Power Rangers, ever in life, LeVar, but the guy who played the Green Ranger, the most popular one, you probably have seen him, maybe once or twice, in your life if you're not a fan. But the guy who's the Green Ranger, White Ranger, all of that. Jason David Frank, he, passed away, from suicide in November 2022. So you're talking to somebody that has watched people, public figures, go through that process where you're seeing red flags. And then when there's no intervention whatsoever, either from they themselves or the people around them, this is how they end up. And I'm seeing it again. That's why I'm talking about this. And literally, I'm probably going to be the only video on YouTube that is talking about this in this type of way. Because everybody else is just another boxing story. Oh, he got stripped, DOI, whatever. Another guy I used to watch, he was kind of, laughing at it and just condemning this dude. Like, oh, Black culture, they promote this type of stuff. Jermall Charlo is your hero, so this is just going to be okay. And that's what he said. And, so that's what I'm saying. Like, just the grand conversation in general, and the moral that I'm trying to get across to people is that, like, you got to have empathy sometimes, and it might not be for Jermall, whether you like him or not, or if you don't like him, but these things happen to this could happen to people that and it's one of those things where there are signs and patterns and behaviors that are repeating themselves. And with Jermall, this has been going on for, let's see, all of 20. Yeah. So, but yeah, would that be a year? Yeah. So a year ago, this has been going on for a year and change. And I think collectively, if everybody was saying the same thing that I was saying, then the voice of, fans and, new media on YouTube, that collective voice would be loud enough to the point where he would hear it. So if everybody's saying, yo, Jermall, you need help, then he would actually be like, you know what, maybe they have a point, and then he would go and seek help. Because the WBC ain't doing that. All they were doing was saying, yo, we just gonna hold the belt for you. So, all right, we understand you're going through something, so we're not gonna strip you. That's all they're doing. It's not like they were like, all right, Jermall, let's help you get into rehab. They didn't do that. And then the minute he got a DUI, they said, oh, strip. That was it. So,
yeah, just one point too, and I agree with you, and I do want to piggyback on that and say, I do think that unfortunately, I'm probably going to say his brother's name, Jermall, right?
His brother's name is Jermall.
So Jermall. All right. So I also think that he is probably not seen in the same light as a Tyson Fury, a Deontay Wilder from the boxing commission. So he might be, a popular name and, rich and all that, but he's not on the same level as those type of athletes. So they may not they're not going to be quick to reach out to him as a Tyson Fury because they don't view him as the cash cow. As someone.
What, you talking about the WBC?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, clearly they favor him because they haven't stripped him for 2 years. And he's had 2 fights in 2 years. Or really 3, because again, he hasn't, before November of last year, he hadn't fought since June of 2021. So if they don't do that for anybody else, and on top of that, he actually fought at a catch weight. So he didn't even fight at 160, and they still didn't strip him. So I'm not saying that like he's just as popular as a Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, but I'm saying that the WBC has had his best interest, for them to allow him to just hold on to the belt because they acknowledge the fact that he is having, issues that is affecting his activity level as a fighter. So.
Oh, no. I completely agree with you. And I think it's because he is a champion. When you're a champion, you're going to be afforded some leeway. Mm-hmm. But like, for instance, in the UFC, there was Stephan Bonner, rest in peace to him. But he was a well-respected fighter at his time. He wasn't a dominant champion. I don't think he ever won a championship. But when he had his drug addiction and he was struggling, the UFC, Dana White, decided to get him in rehab, get him back on track. And they've personally invested to help him. And, granted, that was a different situation, but, in terms of, actual help, I don't think they're going to, I don't think they're providing him with the resources, to really help him. Like, for instance, Draymond Green, right? The NBA finally stepped in and was like, yo, we got to address the situation because he's out here, doing crazy behavior. And they finally took action. And I think that they need to strip his belt. Yeah, it might be good or holding it for him, whatever the case may be, might be a step. But I think they really need to, actually take a step forward and address the situation. because, like LeVar said, if he feels like he's richer than everybody else in his group, it don't matter what his brother or his coach or his manager is going to tell him. Because again, I'm not saying this is true, but it could be like LeVar said, "Yo, I make more money than you. I'm the star of this team. What do you mean?" You know, so I think that the commission really has to step in and try to give him the help like other commissions in different sports have done, because obviously whatever other people in his circle is doing is not working. So it needs to get to the point where you might need the commission to get involved and like let's do some a psych evaluation or whatever. And we do see in other sports, NBA and all that stuff, even though it's a different type of sport, but we do see a lot of the athletes having access to therapists, psychiatrists, and other benefits that professional athletes should get. And I don't think he's getting those type of resources. And if you don't I don't know if he knows how to find a psychiatrist and therapist, but if he isn't aware of those sources out there that can help him, who is he going to learn from? So I think at this point, I'd rather people may not like authority getting into people's lives, but I'd rather them get involved now and say, "Yo, we're going to let you take a year off for competition. We're going to let you work on yourself, so when you come back, you're a stronger person." Rather, they just take the belt and he goes back out, drink, and something dangerous happens. Because if he ends up in prison or someone dies, it's a wrap. Nobody's going to feel sympathy for him. Nobody's going to care because they're going to look like, "Yo, you had all this time to figure out your situation." So I do agree with you. I do think more people outside his circle needs to step in and give him help before it's too late. Because if it's too late, then he won't get the help, and the court system ain't going to gain no sympathy from him, gain sympathy for him. So I do wish him well. I wish no ill will on him or any other athlete out there acting out due to stress or whatever the case may be they're going through in life. But he needs to, like you said, he needs to get out there and he needs to do the work and change the situation, not just for him but for his children.
Yeah. LeVar, you have any last thoughts?
Just piggybacking back off of the sports and how boxing should address seeing their athletes going through that type of situation. I definitely agree with that take. I think that boxing hasn't really been doing that with their fighters. That's why we've been seeing a lot of people going through those types of mental breaks. And even people like, even though I wouldn't say that he's not, I wouldn't say he's on the same level as Jermall, but people like Ryan Garcia, who took I think it was like a year or two to break from boxing because of mental issues. And it's funny because someone like him who has not just a big media personality, but he presents himself as like a funny, a chill and relaxed guy.
Who?
But Ryan Garcia.
Oh, he
Ryan
fucking
Garcia.
does it. Ryan Garcia is the biggest asshole in boxing. The Latino Adrian Broner, the fake Christian, like the Austrian ostrich. Fuck him.
Oh yeah,
No.
Yeah,
maybe he used to. He probably used to, but in the last freaking 4 or 5 months, nah, absolutely not.
Oh yeah, definitely not the last 4 or 5 months. I think he took this year or two break 3 years ago or 2 years ago. But he does he has presented himself in that way back in the day. Obviously nowadays he's a clown. We both agree. But it's people can be presenting themselves one way in public, and then obviously when they're in private, they could be going through a lot of things. In boxing specifically, I just think they look at the athletes like it is what it is. They don't really care. They'll take away the belt. Now Jermall can do whatever. Because to be honest with you, if he just ended up dying, let's say in the next couple of months, I guarantee you no boxing commission would care. I guarantee you no promoters would care.
What if he was gone?
Yeah.
God forbid.
Yeah, I don't think they would care, to be honest.
I
I mean, but you mean the sanctioning bodies and stuff?
Yeah, the sanctioning bodies, promoters, just the boxing corporation in general.
Well, I mean, the only reason why I feel like I don't is because when that's, let's say, and I mean, it sounds bad, but I mean, I'll just say a fighter that is not popular. You know, the guys that are on the come up, I'm talking about the, you know, the 11 and O's, the you know, the 11 and 3s, like those types of guys. Like, in fact, you know, I don't know the boxer's name, but there was a boxer who passed away, you know, after, you know, getting knocked out. And then
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
yeah.
But yeah,
So people like that, you know, the boxing world kind of tends to move on very fast because they weren't a name. But God forbid anything happened, you know, to Jermall, it would really raise, you know, like a light in a magnifying glass on everything that happened to him, and just it would literally just be like a whole mental health discussion, and just the fact that something like that flew under the radar and it got to that point. It's like by the time the news were to talk about it, there's a lot of, you know, parties that would be held accountable for something like that. You know, I mean, let's say in Jason David Frank's case, who I hold accountable is his wife, because, or his ex-wife, because she was the one that served him the divorce papers. She was the last person that he was with before, you know, he offed himself in the hotel that they were in separate rooms, by the way. So we hold her accountable because you were the closest person to him, and in fact, the last person he was with in his last moments. Now, in this case scenario, it's the people that are around, you know, Jermall, obviously the people that work with him. Again, he's a grown adult and he's responsible for his own decisions. It's up to him. But at the same time, it's like, if you see, you know, like, let's say a fire in your house, you should put it out right away. Now, in this case scenario, if you see somebody that's spiraling, that's a human life, which has value. If you see it going down the drain, possibly you want to plug that drain up before that person goes in it, because it'll get to the point of no return. So I do think that, like, there would be blowback from something like that. Again, God forbid, because I would not want to see, you know, that happen to him, because I see myself in him. So that's why I wouldn't want that to happen.
I will say though, I do agree with LeVar, and the only reason I agree with that is I think oftentimes, being fans of certain athletes, we forget that this is a business, and unless you're a Conor McGregor, John Jones, Tyson Fury, a Deontay, unless you're one of those, like, those those names you really can't duplicate, they don't really care. Which is why, the Golden State. I know, again, it's a different sport, but there's a reason why not everybody on the Golden State Warriors are getting Superman contracts like Steph Curry, is because they value the people who's going to bring them the money and the eyeballs. And so I agree with LeVar. I think that a lot of times in combat sports, people aren't willing to help, people in these type of situations, unless they're a Conor McGregor or whatever, because they look at it like, hey, you're replaceable. You might be the champion, but you're not Floyd Mayweather. So we can always replace you. We can't replace Floyd like that. So I do agree with him.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, it's not the sanctioning body's job to be looking after like a fighter's well-being. That's literally not their job. The NBA does that because they're like a singular organization with a lot of different components that are tailored, for the players and to look out for their best interest and their well-being. So NBA players have resources, and I'm pretty sure maybe the MLB, NFL probably have similar things too, because again, these are like, singular organizations. The WBC is literally just one sanctioning body. You still got the IBF, WBO, WBA, where again, as a fighter, you can communicate with them and they can extend an olive branch to then help accommodate whatever situation you have. I mean, well, they probably only do that for belt holders. I highly doubt they do that for, let's say, somebody who's ranked number 12 or some shit.
Right.
They will do that, but it's like a luxury or like a courtesy rather than like a right, as a fighter, on their ranking. Because at the end of the day, like I said, moral of the story is what happens, from here is up to Jermall at the end of the day. Even if I knew him and I was this man's best friend, again, it's not up to me. It's up to him. It's like you could walk somebody to rehab, but you can't force them to stay. Them niggas could jump out the window and then go back home and not stay. You know what I'm saying? Because rehab is not jail. And frankly, to me, rehab is the same thing as therapy in a sense that you get out of it what you put in. So if he were to go and then just wing it, whatever, and then go back out and relapse and do the same dumb shit, then, that's up to him. I would hope that he's stronger than that, mentally where he could weather, the storm, because we all go through storms and everything, in life. And again, like what happens to you is really up to you. So it's like adversity. It's like I can go through things in life. It's my response to adversity is going to determine the outcome outside of that, because I'm a firm believer in like I'm bigger than the things that I go through. I might be going through something, but I'm bigger than the things that I'm going through. So that's not really going to offset my character and my whole entire life just because of this one thing that's in front of me. That's just a fucking hurdle for me to hurdles exist. Obstacles exist for you to get over them, for you to get around them or to go through them. That's the whole purpose. So for me, I just think that this is just one, thing that he's going through. He should just look at that shit like any other opponent and get through the shit. But I honestly, in short, I think that, yeah, like that wife or whatever, she should not be there no more. And I hope in the future they have like a good co-parenting situation. They work that shit out, but they don't need to be there anymore. Because let me tell you something. I've been, keeping my eye on her Instagram stories just to see what's going on, because Jermall don't really post like that. And I've been seeing her sexualizing herself all in the gym, getting her squats in, working on them glutes, and sexualizing herself on her stories while this man is going through it and crying on Ocho Cinco's, freaking, IG Live and stuff, crying for help, pretty much. So hopefully, yeah, in the future, like that is it, and then he'll just move on, be able to have access with his kids, wrap up his boxing career, because he's 33, so he ain't got nothing but maybe like a few, maybe five years tops, in boxing before he retires, because what else is there for him to do? Especially now he's not like peak Jermall like he was a few years ago. So I don't really see him staying, in boxing that long, especially if the Caleb Plant fight is never going to happen. Then, what is he going to do? And he already said anyway that he doesn't have a passion for the sport no more. So if he's doing it for the money, not because, this is what gets him up in the morning anymore. So, yeah. But anyway, what are your thoughts? Please be sure, as always, to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.
Peace.